Okay, Jitendra is here from Ananda village. I believe everyone online, as far as I can tell, knows him, who he is. I don't see any brand new people. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to you, Jitendra. Have a great time and welcome. We're so happy you're with us.
Namaste, everyone. Nice to see you all. It's always my greatest joy to see you all. Yeah, if you feel inclined to turn your video on, it's certainly very beautiful to see all of your friends who I hope to perhaps see you in person one day soon. But I hope you're all doing very well. Frank, I love your backdrop. That's great. Beautiful. Well, nice to see you all, and it's a real blessing to see you. And yeah, so Mark, I was doing the Mahamrityunjaya mantra for too long, so I ended up offering a little bit too much of the inner and outer world, and all my hair disappeared, and so it's starting to grow back though, but it is pretty short. It's good for the 100-degree weather that's already here at Ananda village, which is a little too soon for the triple digits, but here I am speaking of the triple digits to Dallas, so you all know what that's like. So it's nice to be with you today, and this topic that is a really beautiful and important topic for us to continue our exploration with, not only in satsang, but just in our daily life of beginning to learn more of this inner kingdom. One of the things that I often try to keep in my mind, keep in my consciousness, is what our guru explained about what is self-realization and how can we understand that state of consciousness. And so he defined self-realization, which I'm sure all of you know. We could even all say it as an affirmation, that it is the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul, that you are in the possession of the kingdom of heaven within you. You need not pray for it to come. God's omnipresence is your omnipresence. All you have to do is increase your knowing. And this knowing becomes the centerpiece for the yogi's life. And we read in that cosmic salutation to that ancient Sanskrit hymn to Brahma, that knower, known as one. This is that state of consciousness that we begin to behold this inner kingdom. And it is not only one approach toward experiencing this reality of God within you and around you. It includes all of the paths of yoga that we study, which are all encircled through the path of Raja Yoga, of Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Raja Yoga. All of this together is there for the yogi to put into practice that ever-increasing knowing, that understanding through direct experience. And so we know, of course, one of the three main studies of the Vedas, of Sankhya Yoga Vedanta, and we focus, of course, they all play a very deep role in the unfolding tapestry of this knowing, this understanding. But we are putting into practice now. We've come now to the study of yoga, Atta Yoga Anusasanam. So first aphorism that Patanjali offers in the Yoga Sutras. Now we've come to the study of yoga. We have awakened to that desire in our heart that is awakened enough to begin to propel us toward our home, toward this understanding. And I think all of us who are here, we feel that momentum, don't we? You know, whether we have a good day or a bad day, let's put that aside. But we feel that momentum, which is the soul's longing for bliss of its own true nature. And it will never stop pulsating within your consciousness and guiding you until it finds that fulfillment of that awakening, that knowing as one. And so this has brought us now to this practice of yoga. And this topic of the inner kingdom, of course, has a lot of different facets to it that we can explore. But one that I wanted to share today, I'm going to start off and just share, perhaps you've seen this cartoon sketch where I just recently saw a friend share this, where there's a turtle that is upside down looking up at the clouds, where the clouds are moving. And the caption that is in the picture is the thought of the turtle is, "Look, I'm flying." And I just thought, there it is, you know, there lies this, as our guru said, this hypnosis, where we begin to think that this world is our home, that fulfillment lies, you know, at some junction just beyond this point in which we are striving for. We will find that fulfillment, we'll have that knowing. But just like the turtles, you know, very innocent ignorance, we too, we have lived and understood that knowing through primarily the senses. And we can be tricked, even with the mind, that we can do lots of studying. We can refine the mind, the intellect. But even if we continue to try to know this inner kingdom through the intellect, through inductive reasoning, our guru pointed out something very important, that even through this extensive outreach of the mind, of this knowing, there lies that potential always for misunderstanding, where he said, you know, through that inductive reasoning, that one crow is black, two crows are black, three crows are black, that we can induce from that that all crows are black. But he said they found a white crow in Australia. So he was reflecting that this inductive reasoning will not lead us to that knowing. In fact, nothing is going to lead us to that knowing except for that inner communion. And just to further this, just a brief story that I think that we can all relate to, and perhaps you've heard this story before, is that Nayaswami Kirtani, when she was here at living at Ananda Village, she is the co-director of Ananda Assisi, and she told a story of when she was here in the earlier days working on the farm. And one of her jobs that she had was to take the gigantic mound of compost and churn it. And she was telling a story one day as she was churning this big pile of compost that the goal was to take the first top half off and then, you know, kind of turn it around. And about halfway down into the pile lied all of these maggots, and just a horrible scene. And she gasped and she said, "Oh, how can you," speaking to the maggots, "how can you stand living like this? And what a horrible scene." And so she finished her job of churning the compost, and she was on her way home for lunch. And it was a beautiful day here at Ananda Village, springtime, perfect temperature, everything was just perfect. And she was just enjoying this perfection, you know, this level of joy that she was feeling. And she heard Divine Mother say to her, "How can you stand living like that?" And she knew that that was a lesson for her. Just as we've seen from many other saints, just to say Saint Bernadette when she was before Mother Mary. And she said to her, I can't promise you happiness in this world, only the next. And so lies our journey. And for the yogi now, we've come to this understanding that within us lies the perfection, the glory, the bliss of God. And yoga, which means union with your little self that's playing in the world of Maya, seeking this fulfillment, and union, bringing it into union with that knowing within us. And one of the things that yoga leads us to, of course, is one of my favorite quotes in the Bible is, Him that overcometh, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. And this yoga leads us to this inner baptism. And the journey that we all are embarking on is very also symbolic, just as the Mount Carmel for the Christians represents that symbol of that upward climb, that toward perfection. Mount Meru represents the symbol of, for Hindus, that perhaps struggle toward enlightenment or divine attainment. And the River Jordan for Jews and Christians alike represents that inner baptism. And for those who have the deeper understanding, know that that inner baptism happens in the spine. And so as we move forth with this practice of yoga, it's important for us to understand that how we begin to behold and dwell in this inner kingdom, that it's not just this philosophical, abstract knowing of understanding, but it is a science. And it is a practice that we can begin to turn these lights on within us to behold this bliss, this joy, this love. And I wanted to share this quote from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. And these are interpretations from Paramahansa Yogananda. So I'm going to read this really briefly here. The same nervous system constitutes the one and only path to spiritual enlightenment. Regardless of a person's formal religious affiliation, when the energy can be coaxed to reverse its flow from the senses to the brain, it reveals to our consciousness another world. This stimulation of the nerves at the inner source awakens the desire for self-fulfillment and for self-realization. With progressive interiorization, through daily meditation, one develops subtle inner perceptions, vastly more satisfying than their muted echoes from the senses. The knotty problems of life and death are resolved, and the heart's feelings are extricated at last from the need for further reincarnation in material involvement. This is within us. This is our potential in this life, to begin to work with our energy. One of my favorite chants that was written by Paramahansa Yogananda, taken from words from Rabindranath Tagore, from the chant, Mundare Momoke Ashilehe, who is in my temple? Who is in my temple? All the doors do open themselves, all the lights do light themselves. Darkness like a dark bird flies away, flies away. This is our practice of yoga. As Kriya Yogis, as meditators, what does this chant mean? What is this question that we can ask ourselves? Mundare momoke ashilehe. I sometimes just have that Bengali going on in my mind throughout the day of just who is in my temple? Who is in my temple? And that question is important for us to ask ourselves, Because what happens when we cultivate that desire of knowing God, that desire for needing God, that desire for wanting God, begins to awaken this kundalini, this energy within us, and it rises up into that sanctuary of the heart. And through our practice of relaxation, of concentration, and expanding our consciousness through Hang Sa, through energization, through Kriya Yoga, we begin to awaken these inner lights. These doors begin to open themselves to reveal to us this knowing of this inner kingdom, that you will behold that absolute certainty of God's love. Regardless of if your prayers are answered, or if your prayers are ignored, if you have deep experiences meditation, if no matter what may come into your life, you will never veer from that knowing that you are a part of God's love. And so this journey that we're all taking, that climb to the top of Mount Meru, to the top of Mount Carmel, to, baptize in the River Jordan, it all is happening within. In fact, everything outside of us is but a reflection of our own inner consciousness. So as we cultivate this knowing of this inner kingdom, as we illuminate, as we behold the illumination of this inner kingdom, then this inner kingdom becomes the outer kingdom. And what are some of the attributes of this inner kingdom that we're all opening to? As we withdraw our energy, interiorizing it in the spine, and through this cultivation of this desire for God awakening, as it lifts this energy up to the point between the eyebrows, these doors, which are the chakras, these lights, which are the lights of the chakras, automatically begin to open and reveal to you this kingdom, which, as Yogananda said, even a little bit of this knowing, as these doors and these lights open themselves, even a little bit of this knowing of God that may come to you as joy, as light, as love, bliss, calmness, peace, power, even a little taste of this, that you will not be able to contain it, because it is so beautiful and so powerful. And it's just this science of, through our devotion, through our desire of withdrawing this energy inward and offering it to God upwards to the point between the eyebrows, this begins to unfold naturally for us. And so, to kind of bring this into closing, I wanted to share with everyone that one of the key components for us to begin to behold this reality within us, I'm going to share a couple of stories, is one story of Mother Teresa that's very touching. She would, as many of you know, served the poor in Calcutta, and of course many other things she has done as well. But one day she was visiting this household, and she would bring a half, let's say a pound of rice to each of the households, which wasn't a lot, but these people had nothing. So she would bring this small bag of rice to each household. And then, she would come back again in a couple of days or a few days and give a little more. So this one household that she visited, she brought this pound of rice or whatever the amount was and gave it to this woman. And immediately this woman opened up this small bag of rice, and she immediately split it in half. And she took that other half and she brought it to her neighbor. And then she came back home, and Mother Teresa observed this. Now, the first thought that Mother Teresa had was, I can come back to this woman tonight and give her more rice. I mean, Mother Teresa had a vast resources, so she could come back and at least give this woman another half that she gave away. But she didn't. She didn't, because she knew that she wanted this woman to experience the joy of that unconditional self-offering, that unconditional love, and that feeling of giving. So she didn't come back. And so for all of us, God, as you know, as our Guru said, as he reminded us, he has everything in this universe. But one thing, that we may have that choice, that free choice within us to give our love to God. And how do we do this? What does this mean? And really, these doors and these lights and how they begin to illuminate this inner kingdom, devotion. The monks who were with Paramahansa Yogananda the evening before he left the body, he was talking to the monks about a few things, but then he closed. And the last things that he told the monks was instilling in them, cultivate the desire for God in your hearts. There's a story of a disciple who came to visit Paramahansa Yogananda. I believe it was at Lake Shrine, but I'm not 100% sure. And he was found on the grounds there by the other monks. And so Paramahansa Yogananda came out and he said, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. And a lot of people thought, gosh, well, that's very interesting. He said, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. And what Yogananda was speaking of is that this gentleman in previous incarnations had left the path. He had left the path, left the teachings, and accrued a lot of bad karma. So his karma was such that he shouldn't have been there. Through the law of karma, Yogananda said he shouldn't have been there, but he was. So Yogananda said, well, let's invite him to be in the ashram. So he did. And the time that this disciple was in the ashram, he caused lots of trouble because he had a lot of karma, and there's a lot of turbulence that came with his time there. But that's okay. They embraced him. And this is the disciple that Yogananda quoted as being like hot molasses. Too sticky to swallow or too hot to swallow and too sticky to spit out. So to fast forward the story, though, this is, of course, we perhaps have heard the story in the context of being humorous. And of course, there's a lot of humor to this story. But what's so beautiful about this story is later on, he pestered Yogananda. He wouldn't leave him alone. He would call him sometimes at 2, 3 in the morning. And, and Yogananda was busy. And of course, he gave himself to his disciples. So long story short, Yogananda sent him to one of the teaching centers, I believe in Tucson, but I'm not 100% positive on that. But he sent him far away. And he told them that, okay, Yogananda said, I need some time. I need some time alone. And he told some of his disciples to say, don't tell this disciple where I am. Don't give him my phone number. Just don't tell him where I am. So this is when Paramahansa Yogananda went out to the desert, to his retreat, with a few of the monks. And so, he's very far away. All is good. So one day, one of the monks is outside doing some work, and a car pulls up. And guess who comes out of the car? Our dear, dear disciple. And he asked the question, "Where's Master?" And the question that was presented was, "How did you know that Master was here? How did you know this?" And what's so touching with this story to me is his reply. He said, "I needed Master. And I told God, I prayed to God, I need Master. And so I got in my car and I just started driving. And here I am." And yes, there's much humor in the life of this disciple that I think we all enjoy. But how beautiful that is. That need for the Guru. So much so that God guided him, perhaps even against Yogananda's wishes. But he was there. Now, for all of us, how we can begin to work with this subtle energy within us that for so long, through that same mechanism of our desires and our devotion to other things in this world, to other desires of wanting or needing this or that, it has dissipated this energy. And this is, of course, the story that we read in today's reading of Adam and Eve. Our energy has just been committed to a lot of things. But now we've come to the study of yoga. Now we are opening to this path of discipleship, of opening our hearts, of taking that same energy that has been given to us and reversing it and beginning to define that desire, that devotion, and turning it toward God. And that energy is already within you. It's just this redirecting this energy. And as much as one thing I invite all of us to do, which I've been practicing this recently, is whenever you feel the heart or the mind beginning to feel that pull of, I need this. And perhaps you do need that. If your house floods, you need a pump. You need a water pump to pump the water out. If you're hungry and you have no food, you need food. There are needs that we need to, of course, honor. But pay attention to that feeling of that propulsion, of that magnetism of the heart of, I need this. Or perhaps it is a desire that you have. I want this. Whatever it is, that object of your desire. And just bear witness to that feeling, that experience. And ask yourself this question every day. Do I need God? And am I honoring that in my heart? And it's not a time to be getting down on ourselves, but it is that question. Do I love God? Do I need God? And how much am I moving my energy in that direction? So, asking that question, listen to the heart, because if we listen carefully, we can begin to hear how much God loves us and how much we will feel that God needs us. He wants our love. And so the more we listen silently in meditation and feel each day as we, when we need something, especially knowledge, what's our first response? google.com. Isn't that just this process now? I need to know this. I need this information. Our first response, Googl, google.com. So just the same, build within your nervous system, your consciousness, your heart, G-O-D or G-U-R-U. This is just this shift that we can all make. And just this subtle shift will begin to move the energy in a direction where all the doors, all the lights will begin to light themselves. This mansion, this kingdom of love, of bliss is within you, and all we have to do is turn the lights on. So be excited, be that anticipatory joy of turning these lights on. And really, who's the one to turn the lights on? It's God, it's the Guru. But we need to do our part, which is that dedication of that desire in our hearts to move ever closer to God. So I wish you blessings in this pilgrimage to the holy shrine that is within you, and nothing will destroy it, and it is waiting for you. So let's not wait too long to get moving. So many, many blessings, dear friends.